The room was dimly lit, the hum of fluorescent lights casting long shadows on the cold, sterile floor. Dr. Amelia Rose stood at the observation window, her eyes fixed on the figure seated in the center of the containment chamber. SCP-030, or Homunculus, as it was colloquially known, was an enigma wrapped in the form of a diminutive, pale humanoid. Its features were childlike, yet its eyes held an ancient wisdom, as if it had witnessed the birth of stars. "Good evening, SCP-030, Dr. Rose said into the intercom. Her voice was calm, professional, betraying no hint of the unease she felt whenever she interacted with the creature. It raised its head, dark eyes meeting hers with a level of curiosity that was almost unnerving. "Good evening, Dr. SCP-030 replied. Its voice was soft, melodic, with an accent that hinted at times long past. "To what do I owe the pleasure of your company today?" Dr. Rose hesitated for a moment, considering her approach. SCP-030 was known for its vast knowledge, particularly in alchemy, history, and languages. Yet its origins were shrouded in mystery. She had been assigned to uncover more about its past, to understand the full extent of its abilities. "I wanted to talk about you, your origins," she said, choosing her words carefully. "You've been with us for some time now, and yet we know so little about where you come from. Would you be willing to share more about that?" SCP-030 tilted its head, a faint smile playing on its lips. Origins. A subject as old as time itself. I have been awake for many centuries, Doctor, and yet my beginning is as obscured to me as it is to you. I was created, that much I know, but by whom, or for what purpose? That is a question I have pondered for an eternity. Dr. Rose leaned forward, intrigued. Created? By whom? The homunculus sighed, a sound that was almost musical. An alchemist, I believe. A man driven by the desire to transcend the mortal realm, to create life from clay and breath. But his name, his face, those are lost to the sands of time. I remember only fragments, echoes of a voice that spoke in ancient tongues. There was a silence as Dr. Rose digested this information. The idea of an ancient alchemist creating SCP-030 was not new, but hearing it from the creature itself added a weight to the theory. "And what of your abilities? Your knowledge? How do you possess such vast information about the world?" SCP-030's smile widened, a glint of mischief in its eyes. "Knowledge is a river, Doctor, ever-flowing, ever-changing. I am but a vessel, a conduit through which it flows. I read, I listen, I observe. Time is my greatest ally, for it grants me the patience to learn, to absorb, to understand." Dr. Rose made a note on her clipboard, her mind racing with possibilities. SCP-030 was more than just a creature, it was a repository of knowledge, a living library of ancient wisdom. And yet there was a sense of melancholy in its voice, a hint of loneliness that tugged at her heart. "Is there anything you desire, SCP-030, she asked softly. "Anything we can provide to make your existence more comfortable?" For a moment the homunculus looked surprised, as if the question had caught it off guard. It considered her words carefully before responding. "I desire to learn, to understand the world beyond these walls. Books, Doctor. I would like more books." Dr. Rose nodded, a smile spreading across her face. "I think that can be arranged. Thank you, SCP-030. You've been very helpful." As she turned to leave, SCP-030's voice stopped her. "Dr. Rose, one more thing." She paused, looking back at the creature. "Yes. Be careful what you seek," it said, its voice suddenly grave. "Knowledge is a double-edged sword. It can illuminate, but it can also blind. Remember that." Dr. Rose felt a chill run down her spine as she exited the room, SCP-030's words echoing in her mind. The homunculus was a mystery, one that she was determined to solve. But as she walked down the sterile corridors of the SCP Foundation, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was delving into something far more dangerous than she had anticipated. The laboratory was bustling with activity. Researchers moved about, setting up equipment, calibrating sensors, and discussing the day's experiment in hushed tones. Dr. Rose stood at the center of the chaos, reviewing the procedures for what felt like the 100th time. Today, they would test SCP-030's cognitive abilities under controlled conditions, measuring its responses to various stimuli. "Is everything ready?" she asked, looking at her team. Dr. Harrison, her assistant, nodded, his face a mask of concentration. "All systems are go, Doctor. We're ready to begin." Dr. Rose took a deep breath, steeling herself for the task ahead. SCP-030 was brought into the room, escorted by 2 security personnel. It walked with a calm, measured gait, its expression serene. It seemed unperturbed by the flurry of activity around it, as if it had seen it all before. "Good morning, SCP-030, Dr. Rose greeted, her voice steady. "Today we'll be conducting a series of tests to assess your cognitive functions. Are you ready?" The homunculus nodded, its eyes flicking over the various machines and devices. "I am ready, Doctor. Though I must admit, I am curious. What do you hope to learn from this?" "We want to understand the full extent of your abilities," Dr. Rose explained. "Your knowledge, your reasoning, your memory. We need to know how you process information." SCP-030 nodded again, a knowing smile on its lips. "Very well. Let us begin." The first test involved a series of puzzles, each more complex than the last. SCP-030 completed them with ease, its hands moving deftly, its mind working faster than the machines could measure. It seemed almost bored, as if these tasks were beneath its intellect. Next came the memory test. Images, words, and sounds were flashed before it in rapid succession, each designed to test different aspects of recall and recognition. SCP-030 answered each prompt without hesitation, its responses accurate to the smallest detail. As the tests continued, Dr. Rose couldn't help but marvel at the creature's abilities. It was as if SCP-030's mind was a vast, interconnected network, capable of storing and retrieving information with perfect precision. Yet there was something else, something beneath the surface that intrigued her. "Let's move on to the final test," Dr. Rose said, her voice tinged with excitement. This was the test she had been most eager to conduct, one that would probe deeper into SCP-030's psyche. A large screen was set up, displaying a series of abstract images and patterns. Each was designed to evoke a specific emotional response, from joy to fear to sadness. Dr. Rose watched closely as the images flashed by, monitoring SCP-030 actions. At first there was nothing. SCP-030's face remained impassive, its eyes unblinking. But as the images grew more intense, something changed. A flicker of emotion passed over its features, so brief it was almost imperceptible. Dr. Rose leaned forward, her heart pounding. "Stop," SCP-030 said suddenly, its voice low, almost pleading. "Please, stop." Dr. Rose hesitated, caught off guard by the unexpected reaction. "What's wrong?" she asked, her voice gentle. The homunculus turned to her, its eyes dark and haunted. "These images. They awaken something within me, memories I have long buried. Pain, loss, fear. Please, no more." Dr. Rose motioned for the screen to be turned off, her mind racing. SCP-030's reaction was more than she had anticipated. It had always seemed so detached, so indifferent to the world around it. To see it affected, to see it vulnerable, was a revelation. "I'm sorry," she said softly. "I didn't mean to cause you distress. We can end the test here." SCP-030 nodded, its shoulders slumping in relief. "Thank you, Doctor. I did not expect to feel so much." It has been a long time since I allowed myself to remember. Dr. Rose watched as the homunculus was escorted back to its containment chamber, her mind filled with questions. What had it seen in those images? What memories had been stirred? As she reviewed the data from the experiment, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was on the verge of uncovering something profound, something that could change everything they thought they knew about SCP-030. Dr. Rose sat alone in her office, the glow of her computer screen casting shadows across her face. She had spent hours poring over the data from the day's experiment, analyzing every response, every reaction. SCP-030's display of emotion had been a breakthrough, but it had also raised more questions than answers. A knock on her door broke her concentration. Dr. Harrison stepped inside, his expression serious. "Doctor, there's something you need to see," he said, holding out a tablet. "It's from SCP-030's chamber." Dr. Rose took the tablet, her eyes widening as she watched the footage. SCP-030 was pacing back and forth, its expression troubled. It muttered to itself in a language she didn't recognize, its hands gesturing as if it were arguing with an unseen presence. "What is it saying?" she asked, her voice tense. "We've been trying to translate it," Dr. Harrison replied. "It seems to be an ancient dialect, possibly Sumerian or Akkadian. But the meaning, it's like it's speaking in riddles, talking about doors and shadows, light and darkness." Dr. Rose felt a chill run down her spine. SCP-030 was known for its knowledge of ancient languages, but this was different. It was as if it were communicating with something, or someone, beyond their understanding. "I need to talk to it," she said, standing up. "I need to find out what's going on." Dr. Harrison nodded, his face pale. "Be careful, Doctor. There's something unsettling about this." Dr. Rose made her way to SCP-030's containment chamber, her mind racing with possibilities. The door slid open, and she stepped inside, finding the homunculus seated on the floor, its head in its hands. It looked up as she approached, its eyes filled with a strange, haunting sadness. "Doctor," it said softly, "you have questions." "I do," Dr. Rose replied, taking a seat opposite it. "What were you saying earlier? What do you mean by doors and shadows?" SCP-030 sighed, its eyes closing as if in pain. "I have lived for centuries, Doctor, and in that time I have seen things that would drive mortals to madness. I speak of doors, for they are the gateways to other realms, other realities. Shadows, for they are the darkness that lies within us all, the fears that haunt our dreams." Dr. Rose listened, her heart pounding. "Are you saying that you can see these realms? That you can enter them?" SCP-030 nodded, its expression grim. "Yes, I can. I have walked through the veils that separate worlds, seen the horrors that lie beyond. I am a bridge, a conduit, and it is both my gift and my curse." Dr. Rose felt a shiver run down her spine. "Why are you telling me this now?" The homunculus looked at her, its eyes filled with a deep, aching sorrow. "Because I trust you, Doctor. You have shown me kindness, understanding. And because I fear that my presence here, my knowledge, may bring danger to your world. There are forces that would seek to use me, to open those doors and unleash the darkness within." Dr. Rose felt a knot form in her stomach. The implications of SCP-030's words were terrifying. If it truly had the ability to traverse dimensions, to access knowledge and power beyond comprehension, then it was a threat unlike any they had ever faced. "What can we do?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. SCP-030 reached out, its hand resting on hers. Its touch was cool, soothing, a stark contrast to the fear that gripped her heart. "We must be vigilant, Doctor. We must guard the doors, keep the shadows at bay. And above all, we must remember that knowledge, true knowledge, is a burden that few can bear." Dr. Rose nodded, a sense of resolve washing over her. She had come to the SCP Foundation to seek answers, to uncover the secrets of the universe. But now she realized she had a greater responsibility: to protect, to preserve, to ensure that the knowledge they sought did not destroy them. As she left SCP-030's chamber, its words echoed in her mind. The shadows are coming, and the doors are opening. And in the depths of her soul, she knew that the greatest challenge was yet to come.